Hi, this is Kevin Moore,
Hi, this is Sean Williams.
and welcome to Fashion Decipher. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Halston and an exhibit that Sean went to recently in Long Island.
Yes, this exhibit encompasses like a lot of Halston's work, and it ranged from him being his time in a Milner all the way up to his Studio 54 days and some of his licensing efforts. It really was a great exhibit. They had pieces from the very beginning, like I said, towards to the end, and even the costumes that he designed for Broadway. It was really great to see. I think Halston is one of those designers who doesn't get enough credit or is not talked about as I feel that it should be. In this day and age, we just don't really celebrate him the way that we should. So his niece, Lesley Frowick, she helped co-curate the exhibit with Nassau County Museum, and it just, I mean, honestly, it was a really great. It was put together well.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed it, but like you said, Halston is someone who isn't talked about on the level that he should be. So maybe we should inform our viewers and listeners, I should say, on who Mr. Halston was.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just to give you some background into who Halston is, Halston was born Roy Halston Frowick in the Midwest. He developed the interest in clothes from watching his grandmother sew. He took up the skill and began to alter clothes and create hats for his mom and his sister. After he graduated high school, he did a brief stint in Indiana University, where he later enrolled in night classes, and at the school of, I think, the Art Institute of Chicago.
Yeah, he worked as a window dresser and opened his own business as a milliner. I mean, a milliner is a person that makes and sells women's hats. So his hat business began to pick up as actresses started to purchase his hats, such as Kim Novak, Gloria Swanson, and Deborah Kerr. I mean, his big break came when he was featured in an article in the Chicago Daily News. Soon after that, he began to go by his middle name, Halston, as his professional moniker.
Yeah. And I think that's when he made that jump from Chicago to New York to expand his horizons. He moved here and he began to work with a famous milliner at the time, Lily Dash. In less than a year, he was named as a co-designer of the Dash brand and began to mingle with some of the top fashion, editors and publishers at the time. He left Dash and began to work for Bertolf Goodman. He became the head milliner in their custom salon. So that's a big jump from leaving, the Midwest and then moving to Chicago, from Chicago to New York, and becoming the top or co-creator of a Milner brand, and then now moving on to the top designer of Bertolf Goodman's, Milner salon. And there's a lot of people who worked there as Milner, also who had their hats displayed, such as Bill Cunningham, who just recently passed away and gained a lot of fame when they had a documentary made about him, because he started out before he was a photographer as a Milner as well. So Bertolf Goodman's is really, really instrumental in launching a lot of new designers' careers, over time.
Definitely. And I mean, what was his biggest highlight? Probably the pillbox.
Yes, the pillbox hat. It just was one of those things that kind of took off after Jacqueline Kennedy wore it to her husband's presidential inauguration in 1961. And after moving into women's wear, the magazine Newsweek dubbed him the premier fashion designer of all of America. So for him to have a hat that was worn by Jackie O at the time, at President Kennedy's inauguration, every woman wanted that. Jackie O has that style that a lot of women want to emulate and copy and be like. So that kind of catapulted him into being like a name brand, designer.
I mean, just 8 years later, in '69, he started his own ready-to-wear line called like Halston Limited. Halston debuted at minimalist and classic designs made out of luxurious fabric like silk and chiffon. And in the '70s, his usage of ultra suede was a huge hit. Halston changed the way a designer approached a woman's silhouette. He cut at the bias of every fabric, which allowed the natural flow of fabric on the body. So I guess pretty much he made it flow
Right.
on the human figure, especially on a woman's body, on her curves, and accentuated what he needed to accentuate.
Instead of it just being cut at like the waist or bouffant out, it kind of like laid there and allowed the body to let the fabric move along with her.
And he also included a lot of pants in his line too. He believed that pants gave women more freedom to move. Which is true. I mean, I never wore a skirt before, but I can imagine how restrictive it could be. He also got into bridging elements of sportswear into women's clothing. He would merge features from both women wear and men's wear together. You know, it kind of reminds me of he was like an originator of gender fluidity.
Exactly. I mean, at that time, I'm sure, in the 50s and 60s, everything for women was wearing dresses. So for Halston to bring in menswear lines into his, women's Halston Limited collection, gave women more an option of items to wear, and I think that was very innovative.
And then also Halston became a fixture in the 70s club scene, especially at Studio 54.
Very iconic in New York City. Everybody knows about that with the disco scene.
He was frequently photographed with artists and actors like Liza Minnelli, Bianca Jagger, and Andy Warhol.
Yeah, the premier artist of that time. In the 1980s, Halston signed a groundbreaking 6-year licensing deal, reportedly worth $1 billion with JCPenney's. The line allowed Halston to expand his brand and make clothing, accessories, cosmetics, and perfume affordable. Today, it's expected for brands to do collaborations, with like H&M and Target, fast fashion or lower end brands. And licensing is such a large part of how many celebrities and fashion designers, market their brand through products to people who can't normally afford them. For it to be so controversial back then, it really goes to show how ahead of the times that Halston was. We expect that now,
Think about that deal, though. 1980s for $1 billion.
It's insane.
Like, that's a massive deal. I mean, that's a crazy investment from JCPenney. I mean, it just kind of shows how influential Halston must have been for a company like JCPenney at that time, which was a premier company, to invest $1 billion into Halston. So,
and that's really, I mean, we expect that now. Like I was just saying, we expect designers to come out with, a diffusion line is what they call them. So it could be, affordable to the masses and also promote brand awareness. So, something that he was like the first person to do that,
And he also became a cautionary tale because as history shown, he felt like it cheapened his brand.
Right.
Selling his clothing at JCPenney's, I'm pretty sure the prices had to be dropped for their shopper, and then maybe people who bought the original Halston stuff didn't feel comfortable buying stuff that the everyday person can buy.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he wanted it for everybody. But I think that, the people who purchased his Halston Limited line at Bergdorf Goodman's, and even Bergdorf Goodman's themselves, felt like, well, why do we want to have this in our store if JCPenney's has it for a quarter of the price? So what is the point for Bergdorf holding it? It's no longer premier. It's what the everyday person could wear. So at that time, most of the fashion retailers, the major fashion retailers that was selling Halston Limited, his ready-to-wear collection, dropped it. And JCPenney, dropped the line themselves, soon after that, which is sad,
Exactly. And that was the early 80s. And it's interesting. You look at his life from the early 80s, he didn't see a lot past that time because he passed away in the 90s, correct?
Yeah, 1990, I believe, at the age of 57. That's very young, due to complications of HIV. So, I mean, it's just important to note that he was not only a visionary when it comes to licensing and getting and branding his name. This is a time that people didn't really do that, but he was also visionary when it comes to clothing. And he also broke a lot of designers that we now know today. He used a lot of people within his Halston brand that helped him, design the clothes with him that went on to become designers themselves, such as Elsa Peretti. And, everyone knows her designs with Tiffany & Company. Yeah. She was the one that designed his jewelry belt, his jewelry, and the perfume bottle.
And then Ralph Rucci.
Yes.
And Naeem Khan, like bridal and gown designs.
Naeem Khan is famous for some of the gowns that he makes for bridal and for the red carpet. Some of the most sought after pieces are made by Naeem Khan.
I mean, the exhibit, like you said, was curated by his niece, right?
Right, Lesley Frowick.
Lesley Frowick, personal archives and at the Nassau County Museum. The museum showcase like Halston's masterful pieces ranges which from gowns, dresses, and his licensing designs. And new designs including uniforms from the 76 Olympic team, Girl Scouts of America, and the looks from JCPenney, and just to name a few.
Yeah, definitely. And I had a chance to speak with Lesley Frowick about her uncle, and we got into what made Halston so special and his design so classic and timeless. Okay, Halston silhouettes are classic, and because of that, many of his creations translate into today's fashion. How do you think he was able to capture the American woman's effortless style so timelessly?
He just was a visionary. He knew the female form really well. He knew fabrics inside and out, and he knew what sort of cuts to make out of the specific fabrics to feet to flat or whatever the specific female form was. And he just had a vision to have it not be slated into anything sort of modern or whatever, but to just be classic that would live on.
You worked with your uncle during that time. Was Halston good at spotting and cultivating new talent? I say this because the team he surrounded himself with, like Steven Sprouse and Naeem Khan, Elsa Peretti, they all went on to do great things.
He was extremely adept at spotting talent, and he really loved to nurture that and open doors for people who showed some sort of promise. And he did that with many, many, many people along his whole trajectory, along his career.
Okay, and lastly, what do you hope the visitor will take with them after viewing this exhibit?
Well, I'm just hoping that they will see how much really hard work it takes to create this sort of a legacy, that it doesn't come easy. You just don't snap your fingers and make it happen. So it was through so much of his blood, sweat, and tears, his vision, his constant keeping at it. You know, it wasn't always perfect. He wanted to make it perfect. And I want people to understand that obviously he was extremely successful, but also that he was a really great person to so many people around him. Generous and loving.
That was a great interview. I like
really
the part where she talked about his ability, as you always mention, his ability to like spot talent. You know, I think it does take a lot for some people, not only to spot talent, but then allow that talent to leave and to flourish elsewhere.
Yeah, because that doesn't always happen.
We hear plenty of stories about people who find out they have talent and they try to keep it next to them all the time.
Yeah, she noted that he's very generous and he was very adept on in seeing people or people who have a talent within them and, you know, either help nurturing that and, you know, letting them expand beyond him or, you know, staying within the circle and helping him make great pieces as well.
And not only like was his designs widely recognized, but so were the people who wore them,
yeah,
like his models. And you had opportunity to actually rub shoulders with these people while you were there.
Yeah, you know, some of the models, you know, that he used on a consistent basis were dubbed as the Halstonettes. You know, and that roster included Pat Cleveland, Karen Bjornson, Beverly Johnson, Nancy North, and Alva Chin, to name a few. You know, I was able to speak to Pat Cleveland and Nancy North. As you know, Pat Cleveland is a model and daughter of artist Lady Bird Cleveland. You know, she was raised in Harlem and she was spotted in Harlem to become a model. And, you know, let's listen to what she has to say about working with Halston and about fashion in general and, you know, the impact. How do you feel about the Halston exhibit? Do you believe that it told the story of his designs?
Oh, absolutely, because some of these photographs, you know, are back of the scene when we went to Japan with Hero and just our personal life and things, you know, we're like a close family. So these are almost like family snapshots.
I read somewhere that you had said you develop a swagger from hiding your flaws. And you were speaking about your walk, because you kind of hide your slight bow leg. You had said in one of your interviews. Can you hold that true for like? Does that hold true for like everyday people? Like, you know, if you can develop a swagger in life from hiding your flaws.
I think your flaws are the things that give you the contrast to what you actually think of as an idealistic thing. And then you can picture the thing that you want in your mind and work towards it. That's why we're given flaws, so that we can appreciate them and enhance them.
That's true. What makes it different?
It makes you an individual.
Yeah, absolutely. So models today work pretty much the same. You don't see the same like style of the past. Do you feel that the runway is missing a model really walking?
No, my daughter Anna Cleveland is out there. So she's doing the right thing. She's bringing back the old style and mixing it with the new style. So I think she's the best.
You were part of the changing historic Battle of Versailles. You, along with 11 other Black models, were featured. What was it like to be a part of something that not only set the tone for American designers, but also for Black models?
Well, that's very important. You know, every time has its opportunity. And in that moment, it was the opportunity for the girls of color to step forward and claim what originally belonged to the movement, spirit, and determination to be powerful and take your place. And that's what we always need to understand, is we deserve the best.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And speaking of diversity on the runway and in print, do you see the tide ever changing for women of color? Or do you think they're only featured like in waves?
No, I think women of color are very important to the artists, and I think there's just more opportunity now because there's more magazines and there's more international flavor. So it's getting really spicy out there. Every color is of a beautiful thing, and that's why we need to show it more.
No, absolutely, I agree with you.
That was a very good interview as well. I like what she was saying about the question you asked her with the diversity on the runway, and the fact that her daughter, she said, is now actually doing runway modeling. Like, how do you feel her response was to the runway having diversity?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a really great response. And also too, if you are a fan of watching runway shows, you do know that, in the 90s, there was like, even in her time, there was a thing about having a walk. Models had a walk. Naomi Campbell has a walk, and nowadays all the girls tend to walk the same. And that's basically what I was asking her, like, where is the difference, and, showing how, where's your individuality as a model? And she was saying that her daughter, Anna Cleveland, who did a lot of print model for modeling campaigns for Jean-Paul Gaultier, has a different walk. So she has kind of inherited, a creative walk that Pat has. Pat has a very creative walk if you see any of her old footage when she would walk runways. So it's important to have some sort of individuality, I feel, on the runway. Sometimes all these girls who kind of walk down the runway the same is very boring, to me anyway. But as far as diversity is concerned, you see these times where we bring up, and, Beth Ann Hardison, who also was part of, walking at a time with Pat Cleveland. I know that's one of her peers and colleagues, during that time. She always talks about how, she will talk about diversity and talk about it, and then something's done about it, then it kind of falls right back to where it was. And it's good to see that, like she was saying, that now there's so many options. We have social media, and then there's the internet, and a lot of magazines are online, not just in print, and it gives more options to women of color to be examples to other little girls of what beauty is, so they can see themselves.
No, 100%. And then also you said there was another woman, Nancy North. She also was a model. She was also one of the Halstonettes, and I got a chance to speak to her about what she thought the exhibit was like, so we can listen to what she had to say.
Good luck.
Thank you. How do you feel about the Halston exhibit? Do you think it showcases his best work?
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm just looking at it right now. I liked what I saw in the Versailles room, and I'm going to walk around to see the other rooms before I leave here today. So I think it's pretty a deep exhibit. There's a lot that they're showing.
There's a lot,
yeah.
Absolutely. And as a model, a designer, and a creative, do you believe that there's anything is missing in the world of fashion today? Anything that's missing?
Well, what I think is missing is, it's a very good question. I don't want to say elegance is coming back, I hope, but I feel that is missing, elegance. And I would like to see people care more about how they dress in the world. I would like to see more of that. But it disappoints me and saddens me when I walk on the street and I see most people that they just don't seem to care about fashion.
No, that makes total sense, absolutely. Especially athleisure kind of killed that.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the changing landscape of Fashion Week? Because because of technology, that whole look change, and now the see now, buy now. How do you feel about that? Because there's less runway shows.
There's less runway shows. You mean just see now, buy now, don't do the show, just sort
there's
of
like
Instagram.
a theatrical kind of thing missing from Fashion Week now.
I didn't know that. So tell me what it's like.
Well, now, I worked Fashion Week last fall, and I did this spring, and I know Tom Ford did not have a show this year, and he also moved it to LA. And it's basically showed a few pieces like in a room, and then it was made to order. and that was it. No runway show, no models, not anything.
Well, you know, I come from a different era, and everything changes, and I kind of feel that even if you don't like it, you have to accept what's going on rather than, unless you really are so enthusiastic, you're going to try and do something about it if you can.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. But it points to that whole thing of the younger generation. I don't know. I'm not in touch with them, but I think they live with their phones and the Instagram and everything. So I wasn't raised with that, so I don't understand that connection. I'm not saying it's wrong or bad. I just don't know what that is.
Yeah.
So I think that everything is so instantaneous now for everybody.
And that's why they don't want to wait for the runway shows because it's like 6 months in advance before you get the product.
Exactly. So it's this. I want instant,
gratification.
And luxury today, I think, has shifted. I think it's very personal today. It's not. It's different things for different people. It's not like yesteryear. It's not like, it's got to be like, certainly quality and the wow factor, but luxury has become very personal and different for different people, what it means.
No, you're absolutely correct. And lastly, you work with renowned jeweler Elsa Peretti. How was Halston and Peretti's working relationship? Like her making the bottles and the jewelry. How was that? Did they collaborate, or did she come up with a lot of it?
I think she came up with quite a bit of it. I think he was very turned on by it. Obviously, he said this is fantastic, and I think they did do some collaborating. I think she came up with the prototypes, showed them to him, and this is great and this is that. And he wanted to put it into his collection because it was unique, worked well with his clothes, true talent.
Oh, absolutely! I love her pieces.
When I look at Tiffany and I go and see her cases, there's no one like Elsa, and it's not derivative.
And then they can go back in the archives and bring up stuff that she made from in the 80s that is still current.
Well, look at this bracelet. I don't know if that even
The
sells
loop,
it.
it is. It's still.
I
came
love
back.
this. Do you know how many people just stop
And this is the Paco, I believe.
Well, at the time it was called Wave.
Okay.
I don't know if that's still called Wave. Is it?
Yeah, there's a wave piece and there's a Paco piece. Gorgeous.
This is the only piece that isn't Elsa's, but this, I love this. And the loop, I love it. And people look and go, where'd you get that bracelet?
No, it's gorgeous. We saw it from across the room. Loved it.
I mean, it's all you need is her jewelry.
Yeah, and it makes the outfit. Accessories is key.
Yeah. So I live in Florida, and people believe in jewelry in Florida. They believe in it. So I wear this stuff because you can wear a lot of jewelry, and they like that, so they want to know.
Another excellent interview. I found that very interesting. What were your thoughts on when she talked about how the average person dresses, that they don't put a lot of effort into what they're wearing?
I mean, I feel to a certain degree, I'm a little mixed on it. To a certain degree, I understand what she's saying, where a lot of people came out in her time, dressed to the nines, whether that's with heels for women or, a belt, coordinating jewelry, a dress, a skirt, a pair of pants, and hair done up. I do understand what she's saying because, they always say, always leave the house looking your best. You never know who you run into. And I get that. But at the same time, living in New York City, you live such a busy life. You're running around, running errands and leaving work and stopping by their store. And you may not have the time to leave out of your work clothes or the gym clothes. That's why athleisure is so huge right now, which I mentioned to her. And you're wearing your not even sweatpants anymore. You have on the Lycra spandex pants or, kind of like the halter and the windbreaker jackets. And you don't look your best because you're busy. So, I get what she's saying, but at the same time, people have very busy lives, and to kind of, prioritize the things that they need to get done. Sometimes dressing to the nines isn't as important as it used to be. What do you think?
I definitely agree with that. I do think there's a time where you should dress a certain way, but as you said, sometimes you're just busy. But I think you should always look presentable,
right,
as best as you can. Now, if you're just running downstairs maybe to check the mail, for those of us who live in apartments, I understand you're going to just wear what you're wearing. But even go to the supermarket, not saying you have to dress up and wear a tuxedo, but you could wear a nice pair of crisp jeans, iron shirt, a clean shirt, a button-down shirt, even if you're just going to pick up the milk. So I get what she's saying, and I agree to a certain extent, but like you said, people are busy.
Yeah.
I did find it interesting in the interview when you touched upon how Fashion Week is being condensed because the speed at which the consumer wants the product, doesn't allow for this elaborate show, and then you get these pieces 6 months later.
Right. Yeah. No. Totally.
I thought that was very interesting. I mean, do you think there will be a time where it will go back?
I mean, it's in such a weird space right now. I mean, specifically when New York Fashion Week is shown, it used to have its one area where it was at Bryant Park. Now, when you participate in Fashion Week, which we both have, you could be in Chelsea or on the West Side, and then you could be in Midtown. So it's you kind of have to run all over the city like where it first began. But there's an energy that Fashion Week brings to New York City. There's an energy, there's an excitement. Everybody's out dressed up, kind of what Nancy was hinting on, looking to be photographed. There's paparazzi on every corner. The everyday person who gets dressed up could absolutely appear, on New York Times Fashion and Style section. Because they're out dressed up. So it's very possible there's an energy, and I'm sure there's money that comes into the city when people travel here to actually be here during that week. So, I mean, I don't necessarily ever want to see it change or go away. But I do know fashion is in this weird space where it's evolving, and I know a lot of people have taken their ateliers and brands over to LA for a while because that's a growing space. So, I mean, I don't think it'll ever go away, but it's still interesting to see how much the see now, buy now will take away from Fashion Week. I don't know where it's going. I know some people have scaled back, but, it still remains to be seen whether or not it's actually going to change the whole face of Fashion Week.
And I liked an interview when you guys talked about the importance of accessories, like specifically jewelry.
Right.
And I think sometimes people don't realize how important the little accents can affect your outfit.
Absolutely. And I know you get that when it comes to your watches. I know you're a watch aficionado. For men, that's basically a lot of what men wear for jewelry. And some men wear cufflinks and, necklaces or bracelets or whatever. But I do know that you're a watch person. Sometimes you may not even have to have the best outfit on, as she was saying. You can have a clean white shirt, nice pair of jeans for women, shoes, sandals, whatever. But sometimes the jewelry makes the outfit. It's the accessories that actually determine how the outfit looks, whether it looks dressed up or dressed down, depending on how ornate or simple the jewelry pieces are. So they definitely add a layer of either classiness or dressed down to the outfit. It could change the look either way, what you depend on you're wearing.
It's funny too. I wonder, like, when she was working with Halston, and as you questioned, when she would see Peretti and him collaborating, I wonder, did she realize what she was witnessing?
Right.
Sometimes you get caught up in a moment and you don't even understand what you're really seeing.
That's true.
She might say, "Oh, this is my coworkers,
right?
Like doing something, creating something," not realizing like what they're creating is something that's gonna last forever, beyond their time.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that, because I always say that about different times in the 80s when I felt like, too bad I wasn't old enough to witness, I was way too young to witness the birth, of hip hop, or, times that Basquiat had walked around Lower Manhattan selling his paintings off postcards in Washington Square Park. I wish, you know what I mean? Or I was old enough to pull off Keith Hammering spray paint things off the subway or in the subway system. So yeah, I don't know if people really know what they're witnessing when they're in the moment. In the moment, may not determine like, wow, you could take a step back and say, I'm witnessing greatness. I'm witnessing things that are being creative that will be here far beyond my time. So yeah, you're right. That's a very good point. I wish I would have asked her that, actually.
No, I understand. I mean, I think you did well. The three interviews and the exhibit sound like it was awesome. Thumbs up to Nassau and the Nassau Museum, and thumbs up to you for even being there and actually giving us, the listeners, 'cause I feel like I'm a listener today, not really a participant of this world that so many people just really don't understand.
Yeah, and Halston contributed well, and I just really feel that I hope he would be more celebrated on a grand scale, and I hope that he would be credited for a lot of the things that he's done, whether it's the licensing and whether it's making clothes for the everyday person to wear, the working person, and I don't think he gets credit for all those things enough the way he should be. So hopefully this is the start of something. I think, thanks to his niece for curating and bringing this to the Nassau County Museum and them even showcasing it. And if you have chances to see something like this, if there's an Halston exhibit where you are at, or any type of costume exhibits, definitely go check it out. It's a way to learn more than what you know about that designer on a surface level.
100%. Well, for Fashion Decipher, this is Kevin Moore.
Sean Williams.
Thank you for listening. Hey guys.
Hey guys.
Make sure you visit our website, fashiondecipher.com, to get a visual on what we are talking to you about. Check out pics from events, of guest speakers, and exhibits. If you missed anything we post, you can visit our archives page.
Also, while you're there, hit that subscribe button, leave your email, and if you like, a comment. Tell us what you think or what you would want to hear on an upcoming episode. Don't forget to follow and friend Fashion Decipher on social media. Check out what we're up to. Speak with you next week.